District Board of Trustees. Roll call, please. Ms. Emery?
President Dice.
Present.
Member DeWin.
Present.
Member Effelt.
Here.
Member Ash.
Here.
Member Pats.
Present.
All right, all accounted for this evening. So if we could please now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, item B. All right, thank you. Any changes to the agenda this evening? All set?
Good evening. No changes.
Great. Can I get a motion from a board member?
So moved.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Any objections to that? So we'll proceed with the agenda as printed this evening. We'll move on to item D, public comment. This is a member for members of the public to address the board on items that are not on the agendized on the meeting this evening. Please come on up, Ms. Singleton, and if you will speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Mark, can you see if it's on?
I can see.
Look, our tech is in.
Hello, I'm Barb Singleton from the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville. What I'd like to say is I hope you had a great back-to-school night. It's a long night tonight. But also, I want to report some good feedback. Last week, was able to invite Ms. Collins and a student body president to the League of Women Voters annual luncheon, and the speaker was Robert Reich, and we paid $150 to bring them. And to that end, why we want to is because of voter participation and registration. I passed out a paper that just kind of said the stats for last June's primary. You know, Emeryville has maybe around 10,000 people. About 5,620 at that time were registered, and then the number is 12 something, 20% actually voted. So I am, you know, we're not alone. But I wanted to throw some energy on this topic this election season, since we're 1 square mile area, and it seems like we can really do something. I wanted to try to reach out to Ms. Collins and see what kids could do. And the reason is I have a niece and nephew who are 16. I just visited him a couple weeks ago. SB 52, Senate Bill 52 in the state of California just came up on my laptop, and I was sitting right next to him. I said, hey, I want you to call Governor Brown right now. Here's the number on the laptop. Just tell him I want you to vote yes on 52, say your zip code, and that's all you have to do. So he did it, and he realized, oh my God, how easy it was. Somebody answered the phone, that's all they're asking you. You don't have to memorize 50 pages of stuff. So anyway, it got him really jazzed up. And then a little while more at dinner, you know how kids don't really want your parents following you on Facebook and all this and that. And this is my nephew, so I don't. But anyway, I asked him, hey, are you on Twitter? And he goes, yeah, you need to give me your Twitter info because I need to know what's going on out there. And I'm like, oh my God. He really wanted to know what is going on, what am I doing? So I want to reach the kids that way here since I live here, and want to work with Ms. Collins for National Voter Registration Day, which is coming up. It's on her calendar already, September 23rd. And I think we could do something fun. What do the kids want? Who are they interested in? What Twitter are they following? You know, we can get a candidate or anybody, whoever they look up to, we can ask. Maybe they can Skype in via video, have a talk, make sure all the seniors or whoever's going to be 18 on November 4th register. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out to you to maybe work with Ms. Collins, and the League would definitely try to help out whatever ideas and whatever you need. And I personally want to help out too. So thanks for your time.
No, Ms. Singleton, you stay just for a quick minute. You know, it's funny you mentioned this tonight because you actually was reading my mind this morning. One thing that I have been thinking about our high school kids. And because of funding cuts, some of the programs we used to have that we, really are not engaged in now. And civic leadership was one of the major ones a few years ago that we were really trying to get our students involved. And it's also was on our pillars as far as having our students get more involved in. And I think what you're talking about is right in line with that. At one time, we had students enrolled in the Civic Pride organization. They were really involved with that. They were doing debates. So I really applaud and thank you for taking up this initiative to get our students, involved. They have already been they were involved with the Prop 30 campaign. They went out and hung flyers on doors. They were involved in the Measure J campaign. So I see the enthusiasm with our students, in this area. So I really thank you for, again, picking up this initiative and getting our kids involved. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And if we all band together, everybody is really interested in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out this evening. Thank you. Are there any other public comments on items that are not currently agendized this evening? All right, moving along. We'll now go to item E, reports. Is there a member from CSEA? A member from ETA? And we do have this evening President of ETA, Dawn. Why I'm just messing up her last name?
Turner.
Dawn Turner. Well, I want to call you Dawn Lewis. It's the actress, and I.
That's the actress.
See, I just put it all together. Thank you.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just wanted to report out, can you hear me okay? I just wanted to report that our first day of school, although we had some staffing and scheduling hiccups, went well. We feel that our students were welcomed into the nurturing learning environment that they have become accustomed to. So it was a good first start of the year. We do have some concerns about security. So in light of the recent resignation at the high school and some issues at the elementary school, we do need to take a serious look at addressing those security issues as soon as possible. Teachers are concerned. We're concerned for not only staff, but especially our students. So at some point in time, we're going to have to take a real long, hard look at that and then just make some hard decisions on how to address those concerns. Another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is I know you guys are aware of the shortage we have with substitute teachers, science teachers, and the like. I think it is time for us to have another serious discussion around that. So I'm going to ask that you, at some point in time, agendize a discussion, either board meeting or if possibly retreat, if you can squeeze it in at your next board retreat. Because I think you guys, as part of our family, you need to come up with a strategic way to recruit teachers. And we know from a teacher's perspective what works best as far as providing the resources they need in which to teach, to have a safe environment, to be competitive salary-wise, but we need to amp up our approach as far as recruiting teachers. I don't think that we have had a aggressive enough approach in the last couple of years. And so I will ask that you guys look into that and have some discussion around it. And of course, we will continue to communicate with you regarding recruitment and retention of teachers. Let's see, I don't have anything else to report out, but if you notice, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me. It is time for us to do our sunshine proposal. And so because it is an information item, I would like to do that at this time during my report if there are no objections. Okay. So once again, it's an information item, so I will just read our proposal. So pursuant to Article 8, Section 3547 of the Education Employment Relations Act, ERA, please consider this to be a formal opening of negotiations between Emory Teachers Association, ETA, and the Emory Unified School District for the successor agreement. ETA, like the district, has a commitment to student success, fiscal responsibility, long-term stability, and professionalism. In keeping with these principles, ETA is opening the following articles of the collective bargaining agreement for negotiations. Article 8, evaluations. This is to support teacher performance and professional development. Article 9, safety and health, to ensure a safe environment for staff and students. Article 15, negotiation procedure. This is to modify negotiation procedures in order to ensure that negotiations occur in a timely and effective manner. Article 19, salary, to enhance compensation that's more reflective of the present cost of living and to retain and attract quality teachers. Article 20, which is fringe benefits, and that's to maintain competitive benefit package to retain and once again attract quality teachers. And then also under Article 20, we'd like to look at the certificated stipend schedule and the certificated hourly rate schedule. And this is just in anticipation of future needs as well as our current practices. Okay? If there aren't any questions?
Just a comment.
Yes.
I just want to say publicly thank you to you and your team because I know we've only been working together for a few months, but I've really enjoyed the relationship that we have and the collaborative relationship, working relationship that we have. So I just want to publicly say thank you to you and your team.
And we feel the exact same way. Dr. Rubio has been very responsive, has been open, has always picked up the phone when we call him or responds within a day or so of emails. I don't know how he keeps up his pace, but we certainly appreciate his energy and all the time that he spends in addressing our needs. So we look forward to continuing that relationship and working really well together.
Thank you.
Okay?
Well, I just wanted to just state that we do appreciate your sunshine and look forward to successful negotiations in that process.
Great.
So I did want to make that
And
statement.
I'm sorry, I had one other item for you guys. I just wanted to mention that I tried to get ahead of our whole parcel tax election that's coming up, and so I have already asked teachers if they wanted to participate in any way to promote that. So I have a list of teachers who would like to do some phone banking or mailings or walking the precinct. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm ahead of the game.
Thank you.
I'm
Right,
always
you're a star,
in
you're a
consideration
star.
of our needs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Just one thing, I would ask the superintendent, because we did at our last meeting mention putting teacher recruitment on a board agenda. I would ask the superintendent when we do that to inform Ms. Turner.
Sure.
So she can be here and maybe bring her team and maybe some teachers to
Okay.
be able to engage in that conversation.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks.
and I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Turner, and your team for thinking ahead about the parcel tax, because we all are in this together. on
Exactly.
that. And also, what I understand has been a very positive support among the teachers for professional development
Mhm.
around Common Core and embracing that, and
Yes.
I'm hearing good energy from the teachers about.
We're looking forward to getting the professional development that we all need.
Yeah,
So.
right. Which,
And I also want to thank the board members who showed up for our first day of school. I saw you guys out in the yard and greeting our families, so thank you for your support on that first day. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll move now on to E3, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, board members. A couple things to report tonight. One, I really want to say thank you to local station 34A and engineer Randall West. The local fire station really did a great amount of work hanging out in front of Toys R Us and Office Depot and collecting things and a supply drive with Miss Tiffany Johnson, our fourth grade teacher. And so thank you to all those of you who could make it out to the school. And we again want to publicly say thank you to the fire department and the county staff from the fire department as well who came out. So it was really great. And the students are very excited and are very ready to get some more supplies. And
So can I ask you, was
Yeah.
was the supply give out just to the elementary school students, or was it to both the elementary and high school students?
At this time, it's just elementary, but there may be
didn't know.
some overlap as we determine the process and procedure for how the
Okay,
students will be
okay.
selected. Because there are definitely an abundance of supplies right now, so
Great.
we're looking forward to that. Also, I just want to mention that as a part of my update, as you know, that this evening's back-to-school night event occurred at the high school, and tomorrow evening, I think that went well, and tomorrow evening we'll have our back-to-school night event at Anna Yates Elementary, beginning at 5:30 p.m. So that's my update.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rubio. So we'll now move on to board president's report, and I don't have one this evening, so I'll make this brief. It was a great back-to-school night. I'm glad that I had an opportunity to see family teachers, and I see one that I saw, and I'm so excited to see again. I told her I'd see her again, and so it was a really great event. And I know last year it was scheduled back-to-school night for the secondary school, scheduled the same night as a board meeting. So it was really great that everyone was able to be flexible enough to move our meeting to a later time to ensure that people had an opportunity to visit the school site. So thank you for accommodating that, and for those present to also accommodate that time difference. But with that, we'll move on to item F, consent calendar, noting that, so with F5, as it's an informational item, it's not one that there will be a discussion on or a vote for. So, so we're really looking at items 1 through 4 and 6. And so are there any items 1 through 4 and 6 that board members would like to pull this evening?
I'll pull 1 and 4.
1 and 4. Anything else, anybody? All right, let's go, how about we just, because I'll be number challenged, so with warrants.
Warrants, I just had one question on one of the proposed items, the Spectrum Center for $4,068. Just curious what that is.
Yeah.
Spectrum Center is a non-public school for special ed students.
Our special ed specialist knows that. Appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was my one question on that.
Anyone else on item 1 before Mr. Bonet steps away?
So I sort of got some questions answered on this, but I want to reiterate my concern. I think we saw the $15,000 check to Tauscher on this set of warrants, and this is for the new market tax credit. And I'm concerned in this time that we're committing that much resources to something that I still have questions on. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but I just didn't want to let this pass without commenting on it. So.
I don't see that, but, oh,
Getting bumped up.
okay, well, we'll just, thank you, Member Pats. Any other comments on the warrants? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bonet. And now on to item 4, personnel action.
Yeah, and actually this aligns with
Piggyback.
Ms. Turner's comment about the security at the high school. So with Mr. Wright's resignation, which I'm sorry to see, wondering what our plans are going forward for getting security and filling that position.
Our plans at this moment are to immediately work to bring to the next board meeting position approval for another campus security monitor at the high school. And there would need other conversations at the superintendent and board level to determine any other security staffing.
Okay, and Mr. Wright was based at the high school, but he also was in charge of sort of the security plan for the district too.
Yes.
that
So we'll need to
person-
take an actual overall look at that structure, whether or not the next person would be doing exactly what Mr. Wright did, or if we would sort of scale it differently.
Okay, but so we hope to have that teed up for our next board meeting, or
The
get that
security-
position out there?
Definitely the security position, the campus monitoring position at the high school, we are planning to bring that position approval to the next board meeting,
Okay.
and then going forward, posting that position.
Okay, well, as soon as we, anything we can do to expedite that would be great.
Yes, and just so the board is informed, there has been some requests that came in as I was coming into the district for some cameras, some type of camera system at the high school. There's quite a few blind spots for the staff in terms of supervision, so it's something else we're looking at.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right. And thank you, Ms. Sorrell. Any other questions on this particular item? Okay. Thank you. So if there were no other items pulled this evening, looking for approval or a motion for 1 through 4 and 6. If somebody can keep that straight.
So moved.
I just wanted to say regarding item number 6 that we're pleased to have the continuing partnership with Berkeley City College, and I know it's an anniversary, and we're very happy with the partnership, and so want to make sure that's said.
Great. I'm glad you caught that.
So do we plan on going to this event? Board members, superintendent?
I'll have to get back to you.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
It is on my calendar, Mr.
Okay, I'll go.
You at least work in Berkeley.
Yeah.
You have
No.
no excuse. No, you got zero excuse.
We hope it won't be too difficult for you, Member Nguyen, to make it.
I'll represent the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so 1 through 4 and 6. Got a motion from Member Affeld. Do I have a second?
Second.
Awesome. Any objections, 1 through 4 and 6? So can I go get a roll call, please, Ms. Tamery?
Member Ash.
Yes, you
Member
okay over there?
Dwin. Yes, Farrell. Member
Yes.
Dwin.
Yes.
Member Pats.
Yes.
Vice President Affelt.
Yes.
President Dice.
Yes. And we are so timely this evening. We can now move on to item G, presentation Yale Initiative teachers. Great to have them.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Miles Green. I'm the English and history teacher at Emery Secondary School. And we're going to talk a little bit about our experience at Yale this summer. And Sarah, did you have any?
No.
Okay, I'll just run with it here. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, I think Sarah's an old hand at this. I think she's giving it over to you today.
I'm going to be that guy with the USB device here and plug this in somewhere. No. Okay, no big deal. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience over the summer and then go into my curriculum that I developed. I think it's important to note that I'm a second-year fellow. Leaving Yale the first year, I think my feelings could be summed up with this face right here. More importantly, though, leaving my second year, I felt a whole lot better, and this year leaving, I would say that I felt a lot stronger about the program. The seminar that I took is called Understanding History Through Art with Tim Berenger, who is an incredible British professor who had one of the strongest British accents I have ever experienced, and this is a picture of him here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is really it. That's it for the joke, so I apologize. So one thing that was great about taking an art history seminar is that we'd show up to class, and he would say, you know what, pack your bags, we're going on a field trip. And we got to experience the Yale University Art Gallery, as well as the Yale Center for British Art. We saw amazing sculptures and artwork. It was great having Tim there because he was like our own personal tour guide. Secondly, I was able to cultivate and build relationships with some of the strongest teachers from across the country and engage in wonderful discussions and conversations ranging from economics, politics, education, to Twitter and Justin Bieber. Overall, the experience raised my own professional expectations. I had always thought of myself as a strong teacher, but now I'm able to quantify what it means to go from a good teacher to an amazing teacher, a great teacher. And secondly, I feel that my experience at Yale helped me become a more effective educator, and that my curriculum is more diverse and it's more enriching for my students. Arguably, most importantly, I was able to expand my palate through impeccable hospitality. I was introduced to the Cuban sandwich, and it's still to this day one of the best dishes I've ever had. Tough crowd. So my curriculum unit is titled Power and the Machine, a Visual Examination into Class and Gender During the Industrial Revolution. My essential question is, how did the Industrial Revolution impact the lives of working class citizens? And ultimately what I want to do is teach the Industrial Revolution by coupling artwork with primary documents. Students will learn about some of the problems that were brought about from the Industrial Revolution, like low wages, poor working conditions, lack of worker rights, and concerns around safety and sanitation, and also the consequences that were brought forth from those problems, like economic and social oppression, disfigurement and exhaustion, organization, labor reform, and disease and premature death. In terms of resources, I'm using a modern history sourcebook, which is a collection of primary documents that was compiled by Fordham University. I'm using a reading strategy titled 4 Reads by an author named Baynard Faithfull from teachinghistory.org. And the more well-known model, the Socratic questioning model, is outlined by the Foundation for Critical Thinking. While developing this PowerPoint, I really wanted to try and articulate why the Yale National Initiative is so important for me and everybody who participates in it. And through rigorous brainstorming, I've determined that these 6 points kind of sum it up. There's a rich degree of collegiality. There's a huge sense of community. It strengthens your skills as a teacher. It encourages teachers to be accountable and more responsible, and it's professionally enriching. And that concludes my segment of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do I get to use that little clicker? Okay. Make yours go away. So I'm Sarah Stillman, and I teach visual arts at the high school, and this is my 3rd year participating in the Yale National Initiative. And Miles has been a great colleague to work with, and I'm very excited that he will be kind of filling in for me while I'm out a little bit. I want to share with you a little bit about what I did this year, which was I did a seminar called Immigration and Migration and the Making of the American Modern City. The unit that I wrote takes our art students through an art research-based approach through 4 historic immigration laws dating all the way back to the Chinese Exclusion Act, and asking students how they impacted the nation and how they impacted the Bay Area, and how immigration reform then echoes immigration issues and reform now. This is a unit where I came in knowing nothing, and now I know a lot about laws and immigration. I don't want to share as much of that with you right now as I do the unit I taught last year. I think you remember I came back very excited, a little nerdy, about Emeryville history. And my nerdiness only blossomed once I started talking to my students, because we all got our history bug on. And I would love to just take you through what our students learned in the springtime. Oh wait, what did I do? What do you push? So for starters, this is the first time I was working with the Common Core standards, and I was really focusing on the college and career readiness standards, and those are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So it's not just making art, but talking about it, eliciting lots of questions that ask more questions, and learning a lot about writing and reading within the same parameters. This is also an art-based research approach, and this is the first time I've done art-based research. I've been working with Julia Marshall, who is a professor at SF State. We're working on a book together involving how you do art-based research. So this was a learning process for all of us. The first thing we did in our class is we looked at this strange shape. Do you know what it is? You do,
Emeryville.
but our students were baffled. They had never seen this shape before. One student thought it looked a little like New Jersey, which I thought was pretty good. And then I brought in a map where we got to see Oakland and Berkeley and see how this is really Emeryville. So we took this map of Emeryville, and students were asked to map their memories and their connections to the city. I have students who wrote about the first time they came across the bridge from San Francisco. I had students who made artwork about the different places that they love to hang out. Students wrote about places they love to eat, hang out with their friends. One student wrote about their first kiss. But what we discovered were there were some common themes among us, all 40 of us, and that was Annie Yates. That was a common place. The old Emory Secondary School was a common place, and the final place that was the most popular was Bay Street. So we decided to take a field trip. We went to Bay Street to study what goes on at Bay Street, and we did a sensory walk where students were asked to be silent and take in the sounds that they heard, the smells. They were asked to consider what the air felt like as they walked in and out of different stores. And then they created what's called a mind map, and it's sort of a note-taking with words and images. And through this note-taking, a lot of students were very curious about the Shell Mound Memorial sculpture, which led us to watching the documentary Shell Mound by Andres Sediel, in which we learned a little bit about the contamination and the construction of Bay Street and the history of the Ohlone people, Shell Mound Park, Sherwin-Williams Paint Factory, and we had more questions, of course. We began to read the Ohlone Way, which is a nonfiction book. I was able to get a copy for each student from Donors Choose. And students use the art-based research approach to take notes. You'll notice in the left-hand corner there is, we read about how the Ohlone would wear the skin of deer, and they would camouflage themselves in that way. Students learned that animal life was very different during this time and what Oakland and Emeryville and Berkeley looked like at this time. The biggest aha at the beginning of the book was to learn that the Ohlone people had same-sex couples living amongst them openly. So you'll see a piece in the right-hand corner. These are from student sketchbooks. We examined lots of photographs. On the top you see Butchertown, which is right along the water. And then the picture down below was a big aha moment because it is just a few blocks from the school and right in front of many people's homes. And it was a real big shock to find out that a train would drive down Adeline Street. Students were examining photos using protocols, the visual thinking strategies. And then we started to transform images. This is 59th Street, 2 different images of 59th Street that have been transformed. The upper left one is with makeup because a student forgot her supplies, and it was the glowing piece. We have a piece in Photoshop on the bottom there, and another piece that was collage and drawing. But what was really interesting is that students were able to see that some of these structures are still there, and they recognize them. So we started to think about ways that we could transform images to convey meaning, history, and also what we know about art. So students worked on several different transferring images. You might recognize the 2 Emeryville leaders in the center there. Blank faces. That's Joseph Emery on the left, founder of Emeryville. Anyone recognize the guy on the right? It is. Yes, yes, he was very excited to see it when he came to our exhibition. Students were asked to select an advertisement from an Emeryville business in the past and research what became of that business. And a lot of curiosity developed about who the people were who went to that business and what happened to them, and trying to get a sense of what life was like during in Emeryville during different time periods. So students actually had to go read a map and go to the site of the location. Some buildings existed, some businesses existed, and some were totally different. And then they created a piece that contrasted the past with the present. That taught me that my students need to learn a lot more about maps than Google Maps. So I was able to get each of them a AAA road map, which you can see on the right was just fascinating. It was amazing for them to see a whole section of the map, which I realized, it was the first time I realized that they don't have that experience when they look on a screen. We built a timeline. Students began with national and personal events on the left. National events were orange, personal events were pink, that happened during their lifetime or that they had a memory of. And the one on the left is the Sandy Hook shooting. On the right, we have images, moments in Emeryville history. So students were trying to get a context of history and how long of a scope it was, because we were going all the way back to the Ohlone people, which is a long way back. We had a lot of exchanging of ideas. On the left, you'll see a wagon wheel activity where students rotated around, sharing their work and explaining their ideas. On the right, we have a gallery walk and then a ladder of feedback, written reflection. We connected with experts. We had Dr. Richard Ambro, who is an anthropologist, historian, archaeologist, wonder man, and became the honorary grandfather of first and second period last year. They adored listening to his stories, and he brought in lots of photographs and maps. We met with Maurice Kaufman, the city engineer, who talked to us a lot about the development of the Emeryville water and the shore, and told us where we could find hidden tunnels and all sorts of other secret passageways, and he had lots of great photos for us to look at. And on the right is artist Sarah Lancutis, who is an artist who works with images of Emeryville, creating art in Emeryville and Oakland. At this point, it was time for my students to go off on their own and develop their own inquiry questions. So we started to brainstorm all the possible things that we still wanted to know about Emeryville. And each student developed their own inquiry question. One student's was about the birth practices of the Ohlone people and what they were like. One student was really interested in her block and trying to find out what the history of her block was like over the years. She actually found out that it was the site of the Peralta Mansion, which was a big surprise. I had students who were interested in the police department. I had students who were interested in food. Anything they were curious about, they went and pursued. This led us to the internet, and this led us back to our sketchbooks, and then it led us to the Oakland History Room. So we went to the Oakland History Room, which only allows small groups of people, and we learned about this ancient thing called the card catalog. And this is a library that still operates on the card catalog. And if you ever have a moment to go to this room has everything you would ever want to know about the East Bay. It is astonishing. Students found articles about what they were researching. They were shocked to see maps and photographs and flyers. And they were all there for us to photograph and put our little paws on. So that was very exciting. So exciting that we had evening hours at the library. Several students wanted to come back, and we discovered the map room. And this is a Sanborn insurance map. This is a student who was researching the history of the high school site. And it turns out we were there right after some other people were researching what was on that site. And we learned quite a bit about what was underneath the soil, possibly around that time. And it was just a really interesting moment for students to realize that there was a mobile home park along there, that there was an auto repair shop there. So students understanding that just because they remember it doesn't mean it's the only history that's there. Taro Hattori is a guest artist who's worked with us. You might remember him from the Trickster Project that got us involved with the police a little bit. He is a fantastic artist, and this was the second year he worked with us. He met us at the library. He worked with students on their projects. He showed them how to electrify things. And it was really wonderful because he's a professional artist working in Oakland and Emeryville, and he has so much insight to share with us. Now we have our culminating project. So what do we do with all this? This is Vanessa, who was really interested in the Sanborn insurance maps, and she was researching a strip of San Pablo Avenue from the past to the present and all the different buildings that had been there. So she made a reproduction on an old door of a Sanborn insurance map with all the places that she thought people should know about that didn't exist anymore. This is Jose Solis, the artist who has work in the hallway. He lives on Adeline Street, and as soon as he saw that picture of the Santa Fe Railroad, he was just hooked. This is his piece, and it lights up, although our event was during the day, you can't see it. And it involves found objects of people waiting for the train, and bottle caps. This is Fatima, and her whole research was on the history of the Emery School District. And she read articles about what was going on in the district in the 60s and 70s. She researched different graduates and what happened to them. She created a piece that involved slicing the articles that she read and putting them back together again, but in a very linear and layered fashion. We were very fortunate to have a vacant space at Bay Street for a pop-up gallery. We popped up and popped down in about 2 hours. It was a week to set up. Students came during the week and set up the gallery. It was a great time for us to invite community members in. We had a lot of people that we knew, but a lot of people who just happened to be at the mall that day. And it was a wonderful time for students to share and teach others about the activities that they did, but also what they had learned. And we even learned a little bit more. We had recreated our timeline and had people adding events to it, so we learned a lot more about Emeryville history. And students really, really enjoyed engaging with our community through this project. And it was really it was the biggest event I've ever taught, biggest event I've ever thrown, and it was really, really thrilling. I have to say, at the beginning of this school year, I have students write to me what they want to learn, and I had 3 students say, I can't wait to learn about Emeryville history. So I thought, my nerdiness is spreading. I know I've been talking a while, but I'm putting on my other hat. You've seen what our students gain from this experience, and I have to tell you, I'm the city rep for the Bay Area, and I represent the group of teachers from Brisbane, Bayshore, Jefferson Union, and Oceana school districts in San Mateo. Those are our partners. I coordinate our recruitment, our selection, and I lead the whole group each year. And I'm very lucky that Miles is going to step into that role in the next few months. I want to tell you a little bit about the Yale National Initiative. In the 1980s, it was a way to bridge the divide in New Haven. The New Haven public schools were struggling, and Yale knew that they had a responsibility, so they thought they would work to deepen content in the public school teachers. The program grew with the mission to serve under-resourced public school teachers across the country. Nationally, there are 11 cities and city school districts participating, both urban and rural districts, and 5 of these districts have adopted the Institute approach and have their own local partnerships with universities to create this model and offer it to their teachers year-round. Since 2010, 12 Emory Unified teachers have attended the intensive session in New Haven, and we've been given the opportunity to study with Yale faculty, deepening our own knowledge content and developing a research-based curriculum that is published on the Yale National Initiative website and is an open source curriculum, which means it's available to anyone in the world to read what we wrote and to use it. In addition to the Yale libraries, Y&I provides our airfare to and from New Haven 3 times a year, and room and board accommodations. As teachers, we also receive an honorarium for our work, and I'm sure you're wondering why we get this great opportunity. This is my sales pitch. The district was originally approached by the Yale National Initiative during John Sugiyama's first assignment with the district. And on behalf of the district, he committed that we would be sending teachers every year, and we would be exploring the possibility of adopting this as a professional development opportunity. We've had a lot of changes in leadership, and lots of teachers go through the program. So we definitely need to build some consistency. We are looking to build this program in the Bay Area. We have reached out to colleagues at the Alameda County Office of Education. They saw the unit I did last year, and they're very eager to partner with us. I've filled in Dr. Rubio on our program, and he'll come to New Haven with us in October to learn more and meet superintendents from other districts and Yale faculty. And we just wanted to tell you about this program because I have a feeling we won't be able to go to New Haven for free every year unless we start moving in a direction that we talked about moving 4 years ago. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the program or anything at all. Miles would too.
Well, I'll just real quickly, fabulous presentations. I look forward to a recap of your project. I think that's amazing curriculum that you created, you designed. Fabulous work last year, and I'm just as excited. Even if you're out for a few months, it's fine, as long as you're coming back, you know. But incredible work, and I'm sure students that participated in that project had more than, you know, have inspired more than just a few students. There's probably, I'm sure, a bubble that's going to break out really soon. But I absolutely support this project. I mean, this work has been incredible to witness and see the passion in which teachers come back. Well, I'll say students. Well, you go as a student, right? So the way that you come back and really energize and that you put it into practice. So this has been an amazing to sit here and witness, you know, through what you've always come back and share, and also what, you know, in terms of a recap. I think that's probably the first time I've seen what has happened as a result. So I think it's really amazing. And one earlier today was thinking about some of the early thoughts as it related to the ECCL project in its earlier stages, was the fact that it would be fabulous for Emeryville schools or our district to be a hub for professional development for teachers, for staff in general, and being a place where that energy lies, and we get the benefit of, you know, having stellar curriculum being created and not so much piloted, but start here, and also have the resources and the partnerships and the relationships. So this is just, that is just keeps us right there. And I think it's definitely something we need to find a way to do. So amazing work, and really excited about what you've been able to present to us this evening.
Thank you.
Really great. Board member comments? I know you have one. Let me just check before you go. Any board member comments?
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to see your presentations, Ms. Stillman and Mr. Green. You know, getting to appreciate yours as well. Yeah, terrific work. I really, I guess, want to reiterate or clarify that are we the only Bay Area district that is part of the Yale Initiative?
No, we have colleagues in San Jose, which is another city. We're not merged with them, but we did merge with the school districts in San Mateo County. So they're small districts like we are.
Right.
So it could make a lot of sense to work with lots of other small districts on some type of a project.
So when you
like
say
this.
11 districts throughout the country,
Yes.
Do we count as one together
We are
with those
one.
other
We are
ones,
one of
or
11.
We, Emory, are one.
We, the Bay Area, we are the
The Bay Area is one.
Bay Area, Emeryville and San Mateo County schools
Got
are
it.
one.
Got it. Yeah, so we're lucky to be part of that. So then the concrete question is, what specifically are you asking the board to support in order for us to be able to continue our participation in this program and you know, and take even more advantage of it?
So the other districts, the 5 districts who have developed a local initiative, they have committed time and probably some of their professional development resources to developing a local teachers institute that partners with a university. So we would have to be committed to building some type of local initiative before we even would approach a university about working with us. We are looking for a commitment from our district that this is something that they value as a method of professional development, because it really does target teachers in any stage of their career. Often, if you've been teaching a long time, you have a lot of great teaching strategies, although there are always things to learn, and that's one of the great things about this collegial group is that we're learning with really amazing teachers who are talking about what they're doing, and you just get all these great ideas. But it's all about teacher content. It's not teaching strategies or skills, it's developing content. For a biology teacher to go into a program like this where you're working with a researcher who is working with cancer research and genetic gene therapy and being able to bring that current technology into your classroom. It's been a long time since many of our teachers have been in those classes. So we need a refresher on what's up and coming and current. And for teachers who teach across the disciplines, it's an opportunity to find ways to merge new content for our students. There was a teacher last year who came back and taught her kids how to make biodiesel from chicken fat. I mean, like, that is amazing to know that you can fuel something from fat, but that comes from that type of, learning what's going on right now research-wise.
So that's helpful. It's developing refresher on your content so that you can sort of bring the latest content into the class, into whether it be, is it for elementary teachers too?
Yes, we've had several teachers from Anna Yates participate, I
okay,
think
so
8 or so.
And so how do they incorporate new content?
So we've had teachers teach about insects and reproduction in insects. We've had teachers teach about biography. Camille Perez worked with a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer and then brought a biography study to her students that was based upon some of the same research strategies that he used. The wonderful thing about this program is you are in a seminar with people who teach K through 12. And the idea is everyone is learning the same content and finding ways to bring it to their students at that level. And it actually, I think, as far as math and science, it raises the rigor. This year's math seminar was taught by Roger Howe, who worked on developing the Common Core standards and has an incredible passion for math standards. And I just, if I taught math, that would be the guru to go to for the summer.
So, which leads to my next question, and it sounds like this is content that would align well with Common Core, higher order, critical kind of thinking, experiential communication among teams of students, types of experiences, but can you confirm that, or
so
explain how that aligns with
so the curriculum units, and ours
the
are
other professional development priorities of district?
Our curriculum units are lengthy. They couldn't go in the board packet. They're about 25 pages long because there's a lot of research that goes into it. But they are available online, and they are long units. I mean, this was a 4-month unit that involved a lot of interdisciplinary learning. And when you're looking at writing a curriculum unit away from school for a little while with the guidance of an expert, you're able to think more flexibly about all the different ways that you can integrate different learning experiences for your students. And that's why I think it is so aligned for the Common Core, because what we're learning is we're all teaching reading, we're all teaching writing, we're all teaching problem-solving skills, we're all teaching communication skills. And as teachers, we have to find those ways to do that within our discipline. I don't think that we can't be departments in silos anymore. And this is a program that really highlights that and supports that.
So last question, what would this local teacher initiative institute look like? And
So,
does that still, are you still going to Yale in the summer? Or are you
Yes.
just working with Berkeley and not going to Yale, or how does that all?
So ideally, it
Work
would be,
together.
I think we are a small district to do this alone, so I'm really glad that we have partners on the other side of the bay who are interested. In my eyes, it would be, we have our weekly professional development sessions, and it would be you have to apply to enter the program in general, and that's one of the guidelines. But it could be that there is a group of teachers, maybe 10 or so, who go to the Berkeley campus and meet with other teachers from other districts, and that's what they do on their Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's their professional development for the spring semester or the fall semester, so that they're receiving a different tiered professional development. All too often we do a lot of tiered instruction for our students, meeting them at their different needs, but we don't do enough of that for our teachers. It's sort of a one-size-fits-all, add water thing, and this is an this is an opportunity. In other local districts, the way they do it is you have to participate each year in a local initiative to be eligible to go to the national initiative. So there's a certain level of commitment. There's also, it's a teacher-led initiative, so there's a lot of side work that Miles and I do to make it happen, to communicate with other people, to recruit.
Excellent.
I just have a quick comment. Other than those were great presentations, Richard Ambrose is a neighbor of mine, and he is an encyclopedia. If you have not had a conversation with that man, you should. He's amazing. I'll bring home a plant. I'll be like, oh, look, I bought this plant. And he'll tell me where it's from and where it grows and how much water it likes. And just, he's amazing. And I'm sure he brought lots of stuff because his place is filled.
Yes. Yes, and I think one of the things that I didn't mention is this brought my students to meet a lot of the people in Emeryville. And for a lot of people who don't interact with our schools, got to see who our high school students are, and realize that there's more to them than maybe what they've heard about our students. And when I have students who've run into Dr. Ambrose and they are so excited to see him, and he's so excited to chat with them. It's good for everyone, I think.
And he did tell, quite a few of us on the block about his experience, and he was very happy to be there and to be involved, so.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Can we somehow, Superintendent, put this presentation, both of these presentations on our, seem like they should be part of our website, or, these are great expositions of student work, and I don't know, we should have videotaped the Bay Street
I
event.
believe our Emeryville videographer, documentarian came back with his camera.
Okay.
Nice.
Mr.
No.
Bukowski?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
So
good.
he was there and then he came back.
Well, let's put that online too.
So I don't know what he has of that, and I documented it all on Instagram, and so it is well documented and put out there. But we'd be happy to do something else.
Okay, great. Maybe you could give Lisa T-Marie and myself some ideas for some links or how we can go ahead and connect it to the website, if you don't mind. I have just a quick question, if I may, Board. One is, I know the content is very critical, and I can appreciate all the work. It's very exciting to me. I do have a strategy question. I'm kind of wondering, based on the strategies like the sensory piece you did, or particularly the Socratic method, if I can ask Mr. Green, did you find yourself using that more back in your classroom here after going through that at Yale? I was just curious.
I haven't implemented the curriculum yet. I plan on doing it in February, just because it's the maybe December, just with it being the Industrial Revolution. But I will say this, after researching not only the content, but all the strategies, I feel immensely more capable as a teacher in the classroom, and I feel that I can apply almost any strategy that I learned over at Yale to any part of my curriculum. So, yes, to answer your question, I think so.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just very
And
curious.
also, on a completely separate note, I wanted to thank you for facilitating the PD on Common Core over the summer. That was really helpful for me and some other teachers as well. So thank you for doing that. That was the best that we've had. So kudos to you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you both.
No, I would just like to say, first of all, this is a very incredible program. I've seen teachers come back year after year sharing their experience, and I can just see the excitement when they come back. I think the experience, the networking that you are able to have when you go to this initiative is just really impeccable, and it's one of the best things I believe that any individual can do as far as professional development, is to get around others in their craft and discuss and talk how to do things better. especially when you come back to the classroom. So, you know, I've seen the work with, you know, with teachers when they come back. I've seen them at the elementary school. I know Tracy Lewis went one year. She came back fired up. I've sat in her class, and I've seen the work at hand. I've sat in Mr. Green's English class, and I've seen how he engaged students and really using their creative thoughts and thinking to, you know, to everyday topics and discussions in class. And Ms. Stillman, you know, you're just all in the league by yourself. So, you know, yeah, and that's all to be said with that. So, I can, you know, as a board member, you know, definitely support, you know, this local initiative that you all, you know, are want to endeavor in on. I can support it. And as President Dice said, you're really now building the programs, you know, that will go into the ECCL facility. And that's what, as a board, we've always wanted. We've always wanted to put programs into the facility and not just have a facility. So when it comes to this a local initiative, like President Dice was saying, that was one of the elements of ECCL, was to develop a North Bay, you know, learning center for teachers in the North County, along with the county. So, Ms. Stillman, again, you're right on it, and you're driving the vision of ECCL. So, for me, I'm only one board member, but whatever you need to make this happen, you know, work on it, bring it back to the board, and let's make it happen. You guys did an excellent job. Good.
Thank you so much.
Before you go, it's never over. It's never over.
Hold on.
I know, Member Pats.
You know, as you want to eagerly go, I'm going to say
Sorry,
thank you.
sorry.
Amazing job. Thank you.
Ms. Stillman, we know you're going to have some other priorities in January, and if you need any board action on names for young girls, babies, you just let us know. And
The committee is already rather large, but please feel free.
yeah, but and we do look forward to seeing you again when the timing works out for you. But and we hope you'll come by and introduce your new member of your family at that sometime when it works for you.
Thank you.
Great.
So, last point. Sorry. I just could not leave. I always channel former member Simon, and would note that just through the imagery of what you provided as a result of the work you did, the fact that the partnerships and the relationships made it such a critical opportunity for students to engage in that project is just a phenomenal example of what all of this work for however many years I've been sitting up here and before I got here. So I just wanted to applaud and appreciate that work, and just say that you're such a shining example of what the intent is behind everything. There's no notorious or some sinister thought back, you know, not in my head anyway. I can't even think the word, but it was absolutely beautiful to see it represented in such a way. So I just wanted to appreciate that work. And we can't wait for the shower. Let me know. I'll send a gift. But we definitely appreciate and congratulate you. So.
And I have one other thing. You guys, you don't have to stay up there. But the other thing about this program as well, it really gives teachers the professional development that they need. And what I've been able to see is when teachers come back, when we talk about high quality teachers for our students, I think this is what this program produces for Emeryville. You know, they come back better than they were when they left. Feeling better, actually doing better. And the fact that they're engaging our students, putting practicality, you know, what they're learning in the classroom, and bringing it to, you know, the real world life experience and the practicality of what they're learning inside the classroom, outside the classroom, is really what makes a well-rounded student. So, I mean, for this program to be able to, you know, continually produce a high quality in our teachers and give this, give the energy to our students, I mean, this program is just amazing. So great job.
So you know where he feels, how he feels. But before you go, any members of the public wish to address this particular topic? See, I just, please, if you come to the mic. Sorry, I know, right? I know. So the folks at
committee wants
home
to
can hear you.
You know, our candidate forum for the league is next Thursday night, and I was just thinking, I was going to send an email to Lisa and just ask for the slides to put up before that event, as people are walking in, just, how at the movies you have this is a good advertisement.
Let's do it.
We have a wonderful friend in Miss Singleton.
We'll make it happen.
So,
Well,
Ms.
you'll work
Stillman, if
with,
you get the
that.
information to Lisa, when we can give them the slides. Great, thank you.
I
Thanks
think
again.
you're good to go now. Thank you both so much. Thank you both.
Great job. Great job.
All right, that was high energy. And now we move into
GAN limit.
the GAN limit, exactly. No slide at all. We're now on to H1, discussion action items, approval of resolution for 2014-15 GAN limit. Mr. Bonet.
Oh.
Ready?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. Bonet, just to check, you're doing the approval of the resolution first for the board?
Yes, the GAN.
Okay, perfect, just checking. Okay.
So the GAN limit was named after Paul Gann, which was later, his Proposition 4 was amended as part of the state constitution. It was intended to restrain growth on state and local governments, and they did this by linking previous year's expenditures to CPI growth and then growth for caseloads. So for school districts, it'd be as districts grew in ADA, your expenditures could grow. Well, this really has become a pro forma calculation because there's no longer constraints on governmental expenditures, because with the recent cuts and CPI continuing to grow and caseloads continuing to grow, it's really a non sequitur, so to speak. So with that, the calculation for
Because
the,
we always are well under what the limit would be?
that's
that we're
correct. And if we're over, if agencies are over, they can transfer that overage to the state, into the state's bucket. So it's really a calculation that we have to do in terms of abiding by the state constitution, but it really has no effect on local school districts. On page 3 of the calculation after the resolution, you will find what our appropriations subject to limitation is $7,221,586. So there is no transferring of limits to the state. We're well under our adjusted appropriations limit, and our limit for 2014-15 is $8,707,000. So we'll be looking at that figure next year in terms of growth in state revenues and interest and growth in caseloads. But we're,
Yeah, so for this year, the 77.2 million, what does that represent? That we cannot spend more than that, we can't grow more than that, as long as we spend at least that, we're okay? I mean, what does that
our
number mean?
expenditures couldn't exceed, can't exceed, well, they do exceed that, but the adjusted limit for 14-15 was 8.6, and our appropriation, subject to limitation, was only 7.2. So the revenues that we get in from the state,
Yeah.
our expenditures didn't exceed those revenues,
Yeah.
so there was no additional growth of,
So
we
it's
didn't.
really the 8.8 is don't spend any more than 8.8.
That's
And we
correct.
spent 7.2, so we're under the limit.
That's correct.
See you next year, kind of thing. Got it. Okay. That's,
So with that, it's hopeful that the board will approve the GAN limit, so to speak.
So any questions for Mr. Bonet on resolution for 2014-15?
had my questions answered.
No.
Any public comment on this particular item? All right. Movement toward a motion would be great.
So the motion would be to adopt the resolution.
Yep. For-
It's part of this item, number 4-2014-15.
Correct.
So moved.
Awesome. Any second here?
Second.
And any objections to that motion to adopt, approve resolution for 2014-15 GAN limit? Roll call, please, Ms. Emery.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Dwin?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
Vice President Affelt?
Yes.
President Dice?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bonet. And we'll now move on to item H.
Madam President?
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask you to be able to announce the vote?
Oh, please, for sure.
So for item H1, approval of the GAN limit resolution 4, the board approved the resolution by roll call vote.
Thank you, Ms. Emery. So we'll now move on to H2, unaudited actuals, and Mr. Bonet is here for us.
So we recently have closed our books that still need to be audited. And I have a slideshow presentation. I'm not going to go through the entire SACS report. So I've included a legal-sized form for our multi-year projections. It looks like this, and I'll be referring to it throughout the presentation. But real quickly on this multi-year projection, and there'll be a simpler one later on in the presentation. I'm going to focus you to just below the midpoint going down in the 13-14 column, where it says net increases, decreases in fund balance. In the total column, you'll see a negative $1,328,000. That was a deficit spending for 13-14, and I'll explain some of that to you later in the presentation. But you see, as you go across that line, it gets reduced in 14-15 to $360,000, and then $207,000 in 15-16, and then by 16-17, it's 132,000. So our total revenues for 13-14, this is a graphical representation of our sources of income. $4.6 million in LCFF, $654,000 federal revenues. I won't read the rest of it to you, but you can see graphically how our monies come in to the district. And then a graphical representation of how we spend our money. And the biggest slice of the pie, of course, is in certificated and classified salaries along with the employee benefits. So what has happened throughout the year that maybe we didn't foresee? Well, one of the things is we had to make a larger contribution to our food service program to the tune of $126,000. One of the reasons for that was the the food that we were serving to our students, they weren't quite happy with that. So our sales had gone down, and our applications for free and reduced price meals also went down. We have changed vendors this year, and I have personally been out a couple of times to both school sites and have enjoyed wonderful lunches at both schools, to the point where if you show up late, there's not going to be any left. So they're selling out of lunches both at the high school and at the elementary school. And they're working on a daily basis with the executive chef from Sodexo and meeting quite regularly with them.
I can report an N of 1, my second grader, 2 thumbs up on the new vendor.
It is. It's huge. There's a huge difference between last year and this year. So we're expecting the sales to go up and the free and reduced price meal applications to increase.
And on that front, I asked Ms. Dunn that very question tonight over at the high school. She said she thinks we're up to 75% from 64% free reduced lunch currently.
That's a
and
nice
room-
size increase.
room
We're
to
back
grow.
up to where we were the year before.
Right. And she thinks we might get even a little bit more in the next month.
One of the other things, we also made a larger contribution to our special ed, but part of that was because of the change in the funding formula with LCFF. There was no contribution of taxes this last year as there was in the revenue limit years in 12-13. So we did make a larger contribution to special ed. The transfers out, again, child nutrition, it totaled $234,000. We had originally budgeted about $170,000. Again, it increased about $126,000.
If I can just interrupt you since you're on those 2 items, on the last slide, does that mean, so between those two, we spent $200,000 more than we had budgeted?
That's correct.
Okay. So our deficit increased $200,000 over what, just based on those 2 items?
Well, yeah, I'll get to that a little later. The special
That-
ed
it
really
wasn't that we
was a switch
budgeted.
of income sources.
Okay.
There was no income inflow into special ed as there was in prior years. So it makes it look like we had a larger contribution into special ed, and it shows that we made a contribution above what we had budgeted by $72,000.
And I'm so happy you used the term contribution and not encroachment. I want to thank you for that.
That's old. Nobody uses encroachment anymore.
No, you'd be surprised.
There are people that do. So again, this is a simpler look at our multi-year projection. Again, in 13-14, $1.3 million, and I will go into detail what some of that consists of. So there is progress with bringing that amount down, and that looks shocking, but once I get to the some of the future slides, you'll see why. I do want to talk a little bit about 2012-13 and us being basic aid. We got
1 year.
the 1 year
1 year
we were
for
basic aid. That kind of put us into a little predicament with the state of California.
Yeah, and just for folks watching at home, we were bumped up 1 year to a basic aid district because of a statewide settlement of a redevelopment misdirection lawsuit that sent us a couple years of backlog of redevelopment monies that schools were supposed to be getting that they weren't.
Several years, not just a couple years. It's
Right.
like 7 to 10 years
Right.
of backlog.
It's a long term.
Which for that 1 year alone pushed our revenues into a basic aid status, which we then fell out of immediately the next year.
That's correct. So at the beginning of 12-13, if you remember, we were looking at making extensive cuts. The governor on his back passed Proposition 30 in November of 2012. With the passage of Proposition 30, that gave us and established the Education Protection Account. So there were additional taxes collected throughout the state that was given specifically to schools, and it specifically had to go into the classroom. It could not be used for administrative salaries. And I want to remind the board that in 12-13, it was the last year of our revenue limit funding model. So at the close of 12-13, the state, the county, and the district did not know how to treat those EPA funds as they were applied to basic aid districts. So as we closed the books in 12-13, we knew we had over-collected state aid because of the amount of taxes that we had collected. So we set up an accounts payable back to the state of a little bit more than $1 million. Well, at the time we closed the books, all those entries were correct. However, as we go to close 2013-14, the state was recertifying P2 12-13. So it takes the state some time to recertify revenues earned in the prior years for school districts. So what the state did was they treated EPA funds the same as revenue limit funds. So what that meant for us is that they overpaid us more. So instead of the state aid portion of the revenue limit in its calculation, with this new Proposition 30 and the EPA account being established, they counted those dollars as part of state aid. So that meant we owed the state more money. And we did not know that until August, as we were closing the books, August 2014, as we were closing the books this last year. The education code that is referenced is 47632, and that became effective June 20th, 2014. So it took the state a year, excuse me, to figure out, oh, we can get more dollars back from basic aid districts because of this, and they did.
So can you go back to the slide before?
So
what was this? We treated.
We
our-
treated state aid as we would any normal year, and as basic aid districts do. When you're overpaid by the district, you have to pay that money back.
So were we supposed to have paid them back 1.529 million instead of just 1
That's
million?
right. Because they threw in the EPA account in at the end of 14.
what constitutes an overpayment by the state being a basic aid district?
So you calculate your revenue limit dollars,
Mhm.
and part of that calculation in the past included just state aid,
Right,
prior year adjustments,
right.
and then taxes.
Property taxes.
Local
Right.
property taxes. So when your local property taxes exceeded that state
State aid.
revenue limit
Right.
amount,
Got you.
those dollars up in excess above that, if
Goes back.
has to go back to the state, out of state aid.
'Cause
Right.
you got a basic aid amount, that's why your basic aid district, like $120 a kid or something. You
That's the
didn't-
minimum.
Yeah, you didn't get the full revenue limit you got, because you're getting so much more than that from your local property tax.
Right, so all of our revenue limit dollars
Mhm.
came in 2012-13 as property taxes. So in excess of
Mhm.
that, we had state aid, which
Mhm.
we knew we had to pay back to the state.
Mhm.
And also, the EPA account in the revenue limit.
Mhm.
And since it was new in
But-
12, 13, like I said, the
So-
state, nobody knew how to account for these funds as it related to basic aid
Well,
districts.
if it wasn't, if the EPA wasn't, you're saying we treated it as revenue limit, or we treated it as, yeah, we
Okay.
treated it as revenue limit that,
We were treating it as taxes.
we treated it as if it was our local property taxes.
That's correct.
Mhm.
And
It wasn't a factor, because it never existed before
Mhm.
Right.
the end of 2012, 13. And those EPA dollars weren't apportioned to the district until June, between June 20th and June 30th in 2013. So as we closed the books, we knew how much we had just received in the EPA account.
But and you're saying at the time it was correct, maybe go forward one slide again. It was correct to treat the EPA as taxes. But the state changed the law in June of this year to say, no, that EPA stuff, that was revenue limit. So if you're a basic aid district, you owe us more.
That's correct. So we ended up owing the state about $1.5 million.
Well, no, you said we overpaid.
With
Well,
the EPA.
right, but with the 1 million that we set up as a liability,
Yeah, we ended up owing them 1.5 total.
Right.
And we'd already paid them 1, so we had to pay them, so we took 527,000 out of our reserves, is what you're telling us. That we thought
yes,
we had.
yes, and I'll get to that.
And we just sent it to the state.
That's right.
I thought, and I guess this is a different point, I thought the state was passing legislation to hold harmless districts like ours that had become basic aid districts, at least for purposes of LCFF allocations. So now, they might say, yeah, we'll hold you harmless for that, but we want this money back.
That's right, and that's what they're saying.
Are we being held harmless for having, because we don't want to get it both ways. Here, take your money back, and, hey, we get a lower amount in LCFF because you're counting us as basic aid.
I think we are. I have to go because we
You
just
think we are what?
being held harmless.
Okay.
So I need to set up another meeting. We've had a couple of meetings, one over the phone with the County Office of Ed, and then one face-to-face. Dora and I have gone up there over this matter. And now that the books are closed and we have all the entries that we can look at now, we're going to go back up there and confirm all this information.
Yeah. Now, as I recall, when we were, jumping for joy at the settlement and, becoming a basic aid, we made out pretty well. We got extra funds we weren't necessarily anticipating, like
Right,
$1
about
million bucks
dollars,
or
yeah,
more,
About
right?
$1 million, exactly.
Is that right? So we're turning back like half of that, bonus is one way to think about it. Is that?
Yes, it was
Well-
like a one-time
Yeah.
bonus. That's
Right, it was a
correct.
one-time bonus, so maybe we still got some bonus, but not as big as we thought. Is that the?
Right.
The
Right.
net kind of effect?
So we were overpaid. We do own the money back. We're just making sure that all the entries are correct and our fund balance is reflective of
The impact.
of what it should be. And I believe it is, but I just need to double check that again with the County Office of Ed and go over all the entries again with them.
But going back to the day before the settlement in 2012, we're still better off than we were.
We're way better off,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That's correct. So, back when I did the second interim report, we were expecting a deficit of 730,000, and I showed how some of this was planned spending down of the parcel tax and money, and then the one-time payment at the time for ETA. So, and the cafeteria contribution that we knew about. So our deficit spending was really about 168. Well, so our deficit is showing, the top line is 1.3 million. And then what I've included in here, some of those one-time things that we didn't know about, and they are one-time. So the 126,700 for cafeteria fund, the one-time payment to ETA, the one-time payment to CSEA, the parcel tax, we bought new computers. We knew that was that was planned, so that reduced the ending fund balance to 294,000. Then we had a one-time settlement of 4% in 13-14 to ETA. We're still negotiating with CSEA, and that brought the ending fund balance 145. And then the repayment to the state that we didn't know about, the 527. So you can see that most of that deficit is all in one-time expenses.
So we actually.
So that's a good thing.
So we actually paid the repayment back to the state aid, for the state aid? We've cut that check and sent it back to the state?
Well,
Or
it's showing up
we
as a
accrue it?
payable.
Okay, that's fine. What about the special ed contribution? It's not in there.
I'm excluding that because
Okay.
it was more or less the shift from revenue limit sources, and now it's just coming out of LCFF as
Okay.
a
Okay, I got
contribution
you.
to that
I
program.
see what you're saying. Okay.
So this kind of helps explain that large deficit spending. And a lot of
Can you
it,
go back one slide to the interim second?
and this was at the time of the second interim, so things changed.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to, the deficit was 730, the parcel tax one time was
At that time, 210.
to just a parcel tax, it's a negative there, so that's like, we're
Right.
paying down the deficit with the parcel tax contribution, I mean, is that what that means?
No, we're exceeding our expenditures, so we're taking monies out of the ending fund balance and putting them in expenditures. So we're increasing our expenditures without increasing our revenue.
So you're taking some.
So I'm kind of explaining the deficit of the 730, and that's what I'm doing with the 1.3.
Okay.
So is that more just to go back, I'm sorry to spend more time on that slide. So that's basically, we hadn't planned on, it wasn't budgeted at the time, but we ended up doing a one-time, we made the decision to expend those dollars that were in the fund balance previously allocated there and not allocated for spend. It wasn't budgeted to
The
spend.
527,000 was not budgeted. The $126,000 was not planned or budgeted. The agreements with the bargaining units was
Yeah.
presented to the board with multi-year projections and how that was being funded. So at the time we made those settlements, we knew the effects on the ending fund balance.
So, for me, deficit and budget is more, I've been sitting here long enough to know the difference, so I appreciate your breaking this out for me. Thank you.
So basically, a lot of the deficit spending for 13-14 was due via negotiations.
Yes, except with
negotiation
the
and
527,000.
Right, and the state repayment.
So that's one of the reasons
Okay.
why Mark wasn't jumping up and down as
I got you.
the deficit was being presented to the board.
Makes sense.
And the multi-year deficit slide that you showed, which starts at 1.13, you don't have to go back to it, but right, that one, and then ends at 132. So in the out years, I guess in 14, 15, 15, 16, 17, 18, do those, remind me, do those include
We
the negotiated salary increases, at least as projections, if not as, you know, agreed
The,
to? 'Cause
the
they were one-
ongoing does,
the on-
yes.
The ongoing, the stuff
The
that
only
was a salary,
ongoing,
on salary schedule.
the only
was in
on
there.
salary schedule we've given is 2%. And that isn't reflected, where am I? In here, because we received about 2% increase in 13-14 to give, whoops, to our units.
Okay.
So we weren't
Okay.
going to propose a salary increase unless it could be funded.
I see. Okay. But bottom line, it's the 2% at least is in the multi-year projection.
That's correct. So, the SACS report for all funds, here's the listing of the fund balances. We have a 0 in child development and cafeteria fund. Because we do make a contribution to cafeteria. General fund is 3.7 million. Deferred maintenance is 15. It was 30. We've spent some of that. Retiree benefits really has been unchanged. The bond building fund is at 50 million. Capital facilities, which is the MOU 1 and 2, and developer fees is 3.2. And the bond interest and redemption fund is at 2.5. I will have you reference back to the multi-year projection, the long sheet. And if you go down to the components of ending balance, which is the very bottom section for 13-14, I'm going to point you to the line that says reserve facilities, MOU 3. These are accumulated dollars from redevelopment pass-through that are non-revenue limit. Some of those are restricted, and I'll be presenting to the board information with regard to that account and the RDA loan, and how both of them are linked, and how we can use some of those dollars to either pay down that loan and or use it for other purposes.
Oh, that's good.
So this is not a general fund, fund balance, this reserve for facilities. It's not in the general fund.
No, it is in the general fund. Those dollars come in the revenue, in the general fund,
Okay, they do come through?
in other local revenue, yes.
Okay.
They're a pass-through, and I will explain that in much detail. If I get the information prior to the next board meeting, it will be on the next board meeting's agenda.
Okay, so it's not a capital project fund balance, a capital project funding in the general fund balance.
No, but it is restricted
Okay.
for facility
Specifically.
purposes.
Yeah.
And I will explain that in detail.
See, well, my concern is having a capital project restricted fund balance in the general fund balance, because for me, it overstates the fund balance by this million that can be expended on unrestricted or restricted programs. Does that make sense?
It's restricted to facilities.
Right.
So it's
But
like this one,
I
right?
guess my question is, why isn't this in a facilities or capital project fund balance then? And taken out of the general fund balance?
We will I will explain that at the
Okay.
next board meeting.
Okay,
And what our options are with regard to those dollars.
okay. Because, like, again, for me,
Makes sense.
it does, but for me, it overstates the fund balance in the general fund as far as what we can spend on general fund purposes, expenditures.
Well, that's why I have that line item reserved, so.
All right.
And just to reiterate the comment by Member Dwayne, basically, it gives the impression to our unit members that we have a lot of money sitting that's
Then we-
possibly
right.
available when it's
Exactly.
actually
Exactly.
not available and it's
Exactly.
restricted. So I appreciate your
You got
comments
it,
on that.
Doc.
Yeah, I want to support that fully.
The
I'm glad you
units do understand the sending fund balance, and they're well aware of
Okay.
what's reserved and what
Alright.
can be spent on negotiations and what can't.
All right.
And just to note, I think the fact that there's this section, components of ending fund balance or ending balance, is only a recent thing for this district. And I think it's, I'll just note, it's very appreciated to be very clear and transparent about where these dollars and funds and sources, because that hadn't been the case 4 years ago. So just want to appreciate that and appreciate the explanation, and we'll look forward to further discussions on that point.
And lastly, I'd like to thank Dora Sue for her hard work with getting the SACS report.
Great job,
Yeah.
Dora.
Together.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mark.
Dora.
Great job. I just want to commend the both of you on looking at the multi-year projections and really reducing the deficit budgeting in these out years. I mean, because from adopted budget to this report right here, you've cut our deficit down almost $500,000. So,
Well, that's because of Mr. Rubio.
well, great job, you know, and it alleviates some of the stress on this, you know, for the community to think that we're in this deficit mode and, you know, we're in this stage of not having enough money to run our district. Because it clearly shows here in 16, 17, we have about $2 to $3 million still in our fund balance based on our expenditures. So that was a really outstanding job, getting that deficit budgeting down in the out years. It makes it look good.
And there may be ways to reduce some of the
More.
deficit this year further, but
Right.
maybe only one time using those facility dollars.
Great. Good
So,
job.
on that point, are the budgets, the multi-year budgets that we're looking at based on the, I guess, current state of affairs, assuming our current staffing and other expenditures are in place going forward out to 16, 17 with no changes?
That's
Other than
that's
inflation?
correct. It's the way the staffing is now and what it's projected to be.
Mhm.
Uh-huh, okay. At current salaries with the 2%?
That's right.
or whatever, Yeah.
The,
And the revenue side is just
Is
based
based
on
off
what
the L-
finance is telling us?
the
LCFF 's gonna
LCFF
come in.
multi-year spreadsheet.
Right. Great.
Okay. On the reserve balance, the RDA loan, am I reading it right, that is showing that it would get paid off, you know, down to zero?
No, it's been used to help offset the deficit spending.
Uh-huh. Oh, so we still have an RDA loan? We're
Yes.
just using it.
And that's what I'll get into in
okay.
hopefully the next meeting.
Okay, and also the city 40-year lease, that line item, kind of explaining that?
Yes, we can talk about multiple changes to the components of ending fund balance because of the signing of the LOA, JOA, the JOA.
Joint operating agreement with the city.
That's
yeah.
correct. And so what else do I have here? Yes, and the reserve for facilities.
Okay. Yeah, that's worth more discussion, so I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions regarding the
No.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's
unaudited actuals?
just one comment I had, I know, is the fact that transparency has always been our hallmark, our where we strive to achieve, and I think it's been so improved over the years, and I can't reiterate enough. I've heard deficit spending, I've heard deficit budgeting, and I think every time we close the books, we realize it's actually deficit budgeting. So at the end of the day, I appreciate the authenticity with highlighting one-time expenditures and that decisions the board and the district has made to, in terms of negotiations, highlighting that information is very important. So I appreciate that slide that I didn't see here, and I was like, well, there's something to this, right? So I just wanted to, express, gratitude for you and the team putting that information together and providing that in great detail for the public and for the board's benefit as well. So I just couldn't reiterate that more. Any other comments from board members on that?
I just want to again reiterate and say thank you both to Mr. Bonet and Dorsu. Thank you both for all the work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look, and
So-
at this time, is there any public comments on this particular item? All right, thank you. And we'll actually now move into, and we do have this up for
Yeah,
approval.
yeah,
Sorry
approval.
about that. So of the unaudited actuals, do I have a motion to approve?
I approve the 13-14 unaudited actuals. Yes, I move, I'm sorry.
How did I feel?
Move to approve, approve to
I
approve.
move.
Streamline everything.
And, I move. Thank you, Ms. Ash.
And I know Ms. Tamery will fix that for us at the end. So is there any objections to the motion in the second? No objections? No? You said no?
No,
Oh, no
no
objection. Okay, I was like, okay, wait a minute, how do I do that? But, Ms. Tamery, would you mind recapping that action?
Yes, the board approved the unaudited actuals. It was moved by Member Dwin and seconded by Member Ash.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Mr. Bonet.
Thank you, Mr. Bonet. Good job.
We'll now move to item I, board reports and announcements. Forgive me, I did have one quick announcement, and I'm sure others may have. I had a opportunity with my company to participate in a humankind event. And there's tons, it's a week-long, maybe more than a week of activities that employees engage different organizations. I happened to participate in one yesterday afternoon at Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, and I watched vans, the vans that go out with the exhibits. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But one thing I did have a card from the director of the professional development, I'll say that, for schools, and part of one of the strong partners, who's actually a near and dear resident who lives like across the street from Emeryville. She's really interested in finding a way in and providing services and bringing their live exhibits to our schools. And so she's very familiar with our district. So I will be emailing her, and but I also have her card, and I'll make sure Dr. Rubio has it. And I did provide one to Ms. Dunn as well. So I just wanted to raise that, and I did wash cars. I mean, I washed vans.
Good.
I didn't drown, but it was good. Any other board announcements, comments?
No, I just want to say
Reports, excuse me.
I went to back to school night tonight. It was very encouraging to see parents, there. It was encouraging to see teachers speaking to parents regarding their syllabus, what their expectations are from students, and get the feedback from parents. It's a really good night. I was glad I went.
Oh, and one last point, if in a future future agenda item, the state of the wellness programs family resource center would be nice to have real soon. And I know what limited things they're doing now, but just a recap of what's going on there. So, Member Affield?
Can I?
Oh, I was just noting you got that same question too
Hey.
at back to school night.
Hey,
Yes.
I listen, I express, and I thank you for
yeah.
giving that info up.
Yeah. No, I think we were all at back to school night, and it was a good event. There was good energy from the teachers and the parents that I met, and I especially enjoyed my time with Miss Stillman in her classroom, learning about her curriculum and our music program as well.
Yeah. Outstanding.
The other?
Hmm?
Mr. Pence?
So, I'm going to go off the board. I was going to talk about back to school night and what a pleasure it was to be there, but I'm going to go off the board. On Saturday evening, I had the pleasure of going to the first movies in the park for the fall, and I want to encourage our
What movie?
it was Brave. So this weekend is Wall-E, Saturday night,
Pixar, huh?
It's yeah, well, it's Emeryville. We do Pixar films. Come
Right,
on.
right.
So, and as a shout out to my wife, No Burgers will be there selling vegetarian food. So she'll appreciate that. So I highly recommend it. It was a great time. Lots of members of the community were out, lots of families on blankets, and I'd love to see more of our students out there and more of our families. It was a really wonderful event. I don't know if,
Nice. Get the buzz out, huh?
yeah, so.
And how's the technology? Can you hear and see and?
My son was fully engaged. I cannot say as I was. When the TV's on, it's one of the few opportunities to talk to my partner, so, and to Miss West and a few other people, so it seemed fine to me.
All right, it was working for the kids.
Kids were
Yes, that's
engaged,
important.
huh? The kids
All
were
right.
in. All right. That's funny. All right, so we are now moving on to item J, calendar review. Our next regular board meeting, and how about I'm quick, I'm quick. Regular board meeting is September 24th here in Ralph Holly, and our, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, starting at 8:15, and I mean 8:15 at Ralph Holly, is the Emory Unified School District Board Retreat. We only do it so often, so 8:15 start. Bring your coffee. Or bring a mug. Yeah, 8:15. I don't know where that time came from, but anyway, on a Saturday, who sleeps on Saturdays? So we just work it through, and we'll be out of here by 3. I'm thinking our aim is 3 or earlier, and there are people who need to take a break, so we'll make sure they have time to do that, and I think we can still get out of here by 3. So I'm going to now move us on to closed session, and we'll reconvene and report out following that, immediately following. So recess. And, yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
Joy, can you